The first retrospective in 35 years of South African artist Christo Coetzee opened at the Standard Bank Gallery last week. The Neo-Baroque artist was closely associated with the avant-garde art movements of Europe and Japan during the 1950s and the 1960s. Well, he was also one of South Africa's first South African artists to exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art in New York in an Art-Assemblage exhibition with Picasso, amongst others. Now, during his career, he shifted conventions and perceptions and is one of our most important abstract artists in South Africa. Both curators of the exhibition, Wilhelm van Rensburg, the senior art specialist at Strauss and Company, and Shonisani Netshia, the visual arts lecturer at the University of Johannesburg, join us this morning to share more. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Great to be here, Simply.
Now, Shonisani, I'm going to start with you. Neo-Baroque architecture, was an architectural style in the 19th century. So, moving on to 200 years later, so what do you think the composers are in the past 100 years or so, to modernize modern-day art?
Firstly, just maybe looking at Christo Coetzee's work himself, in terms of how he took the Neo-Baroque and incorporated it within his work. I think that within the modern art world, he certainly was cutting edge, and he found new ways of actually incorporating it into his work within the phase in which he, the different phases which he worked in. Yeah.
Wilhelm, take us through some of the work that will be on display.
Right, so as you rightly pointed out, it is a retrospective exhibition. So we start off with the early work, the student work. He studied at Wits University in 1947 until 1950, and he was part of the so-called Wits group, who shifted art in South Africa from a realistic representation of nature to a more abstract one. Then he went to London, and he lived there for 5 years, and he exhibited, for instance, in 1955 at the Hanover Gallery in London. The Hanover Gallery, quite avant-garde at the time, showing works by Francis Bacon, Lucian Freud, Giacometti, and the like. So he was among the the forerunners of the time. And then he went to Japan in the 1950s. That had a profound effect on his life. He associated himself with a Gitai group, for instance, and they were, if you like, the Far Eastern version of abstract expressionism in the US. Then he went back to Paris, where he did those new Baroque works that you were referring to.
As one of the few abstract artists in South Africa, he did manage to shift perception and convention. So is that the feeling that's generally conveyed by artists within the industry in South Africa?
I think it's often the case that, the new generation must take on the old generation and try to be innovative, try to change things, say something new, and Christo is just part of that movement.
Right. Now, Shoni, Christo was a world-class artist but has virtually been forgotten. That should be very worrisome, especially for modern-day artists.
It is, and I think when Wilhelm invited me to join him to co-curate the show, I was particularly interested because, having studied art or taken it as a matric subject, I hadn't heard of Christo Coetzee. And I went on to do visual arts in my tertiary years and didn't hear a thing about him. So he is underexposed, and he certainly should be in the forefront as a cutting-edge artist, as a forefather, and I argue this, of abstract expressionism as well as assemblage in South Africa.
But do you think there is still a market for this kind of art?
Definitely. I mean, you look at contemporary artists such as Sam Dlengetwa, David Golwane, Thabo Pitso, and Willie Bester, who work within the same kind of mode that, best expresses what they want to say in their work. Yes, so definitely there is.
And certain age groups may not necessarily identify with this kind of art. Do you think that more younger people are now open and embracing this kind of art?
Yes,
really?
I certainly think so. For instance, I have a second-year student that works within this mode, and having worked on this exhibition, I feel that I'm better placed now to actually guide him because I've been exposed to Christo Coetzee's work.
Right. Now, Wilhelm, what's the audience likely to feel and experience at this exhibition?
It is, there are quite a number of work, and it is exhibited in a chronological order to go through the different stages. I think when you come up the stairs, you are confronted with a mobile work, a work that is not stationary, that swivels around, painted both sides, sculptural in nature, and so that is very typical of his work. It's art of another kind, if you like. And then we go through all these stages. You know, I mentioned the early work in Paris,
Yes.
but he then went on to the late 1960s to do a tubular stuff, and in the 1970s, very dramatically, he slashed his work. And you see those works, he did not only slash them, but later on he repaired them by sewing them up, stitching them up, and we have wonderful examples of those in there as well.
This exhibition, I mean, brings together 120 artworks on loan from private collectors. In simpler terms, tell us what this entails.
Okay, so we basically, Shoni and I, when we started, we went to the universities. Now, it's interesting to know that Christo, during his lifetime, if people didn't buy his work, he gave it away. But he had the foresight to give it to universities. So at the moment, if you look at the collection at the University of Pretoria, you will find 200 of his work. University of Johannesburg, where Shoni is, about 70 works. University of the Northwest in Potchefstroom, about 100 works as well, and probably the biggest one at the University of Stellenbosch. So those were the first stops that we made. And then we went on to big private collectors.
Okay.
Well, first of all, even the museums, you know, Iziko, South African National Gallery in Cape Town, Johannesburg Art Gallery, Pretoria Art Museum, because it is important to show their collections as well. And then we went to the big private collectors, and there were a handful of them, but with big collections. So we were basically spoiled for choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Shoni, those attending the exhibition, they normally go there not knowing what to expect. And after watching or after viewing the exhibition, what is it that you want them to take away from?
We hope that they will take away, firstly, a beautiful visual experience.
Yes.
And we encourage viewers to actually go back, you know. I find that because we've got so many works on show, taking it all in one visit is really not
Sure,
good.
sure.
So maybe go back again. And we also offer a couple of walkabouts, so that if viewers would like to actually get a context, Wilhelm and I are actually offering those as well.
Okay, just briefly, where is it going to be held? Remind us again of the dates.
Okay, so my, it's Standard Bank Gallery. It's on the corner of Harrison and Frederick Street. It's open Monday to Friday from 8:30 to 4:30 and Saturdays from 9 to 12:30. Walkabouts, I am doing one this coming Wednesday, the 24th, between 1 and 2, and then again on Tuesday, the 6th of November.
All right.
Yeah.
Wilhelm and Shoni, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
He famously slashed most of his abstract works on exhibition in Cape Town in 1975. This sent shockwaves through the art world, and the first retrospective in 35 years of South African artist Christo Coetzee opened at the Standard Bank Gallery. All right, this is Morning Live. It is 7:47. Let's go for coffee.